Hello. Okay, we're live. Well, we've been live, but we haven't came on camera yet. But we're on camera now. We got 3 people watching, Michael.
That's more than the two of us.
It's still early. People's probably gonna come on later down the road. But then, hey, since I have 2 viewers on right now, a little bit of housekeeping. If you guys have questions for Michael or myself about anything we talk about today or anything in general, put them in the live chat below so that way we could go through them one by one and engage and kind of go from there. But if this is your first time tuning into the live stream, thank you guys so much for joining us. I know it's late and it's Friday, but hey, we got good stuff for you guys today, right, Michael?
We got very good stuff.
Very important stuff for you guys.
Well,
And
yeah.
yeah, so and while you guys are here, like the video, share it, be part of the Chi fans if you guys haven't already, so subscribe. But we're gonna wait a few minutes and then we'll go ahead and get started. Of course, I'm gonna first start off with the market update here in Sac County, El Dorado, and Placer County, so that way you guys could be up to date on all of that good stuff. Okay.
I'm taking notes.
You're taking notes.
Yeah.
Good. You should. Maybe I need to too.
I'm taking notes on your update.
Oh yeah, that'd be good. Definitely. For sure. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. Okay. You guys all know this screen. Checkbox this, single family. Let's change this to last week. In here. Let's do 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, 2 car garage. County, Sacramento, Placer, El Dorado. Okay, let's see how many homes are for sale currently. Man, right now in 3 counties, 376 homes for sale. That's crazy.
Is that a lot or a little?
That's very little. Cause watch, I'm gonna change this. I'm gonna change this to close, okay? How many homes sold within this past week? And you're gonna see something similar. 376, 338 homes sold this past week. So you could just imagine there's probably thousands of buyers, and this is 3 counties, Michael. So
Right.
you could already imagine, there's like 50 remaining homes
That's
in
insane.
all 3 counties. That's
How many
crazy.
how many people in Sacramento County? 1.5 million?
Oh my
1.2 million?
goodness.
Something like that?
Yep.
So the three counties, probably 2 million people at least.
Yep. And that's just
Yeah.
from this past week. Isn't that
That's crazy,
crazy?
man. Your odds are way higher of getting COVID than of finding a
Oh.
home.
I know, this is so insane. I mean, if we go to the pending, let me just go to the pending so that way we could kind of get a better idea for just this past week. There's like 526 homes that's pending right now.
Okay. So that's
So,
telling us how many might be sold next week, maybe.
yeah, and some of those might come, bless you, some of those might
Pardon
fall
me.
back on the market, because not every pending home gets closed because if the buyers don't fully qualify or if there's something wrong with the home that the sellers don't want to address or if the home doesn't appraise and the buyers don't have money to cover the difference, it gets thrown back on the active.
Right.
So yeah, that's not a lot of homes. This is so crazy. Normally, whenever I look at these charts, there's like thousands of new listings, thousands, like hundreds of homes sold, but thousands of new listings.
Right.
And now it's like in the 300s.
That's tough. If you
That
want to buy a
is,
house, it's tough.
yeah, that is so tough for reals. Okay, that is all it for on my end for the market update, man. I'm gonna go back to you now. So why don't you introduce yourself, Michael?
How you guys? How you doing? I'm Michael T. Holy. Attorney at law. I do estate planning for business and for family. I've been in the Sacramento area since 2013. I was in the Army before that. When I got finished with the Army full time, I came out here, started my own firm, and then I met my wife that year. We got married the year after, and then we have like a baby every 2 years since then. We got three babies now. So that's it. I work out of the Curtis Park neighborhood of Sacramento, and I've been a lawyer for 20 years, doing estate planning pretty much as my sole focus for the last 8 years. And in the first 12 years, I did a variety of things, for the Army and then for large firms at the beginning of my career. When I started out, it was 2001, so I wanted to be like a tech millionaire, right? So I was doing all the mergers and acquisitions. But that was a long time ago.
Okay, okay. Nice introduction, Michael. I love your last name.
Yeah. No,
When
it's
when
good. The older I get, the better it is. The older
when
I
you
get,
first when I first saw your last name, I'm like, it can't be Holy. It must be like a misprint or something. I don't think it's
the
Holy.
Right, right. But it is. I love it. And you know what? There's an African gospel singer, and he has made his name Michael Holy, but it's
Mm.
fake. That's not really his name. He made it that.
Oh.
I'm the real deal.
You're the real
Anyway,
deal, man. You're here
but
right now with us.
that's right. That's right. But I'm no longer the most famous Michael Holy in the world because now that's singer, and that's not fair. But changed his name. Changed his
It's o-
name to my name, and there
it's
you go.
okay. After this live stream, and after a few more estate plannings,
Oh,
you're gonna be louder than him.
right, right.
That's the goal,
I don't
right?
even, I don't know if he might not even be popular anymore.
Okay, so just like normal, I put up a poll out there, and I just asked the community what they wanted to know regarding wills, trusts, probates, and estate planning, and
Sure.
we got some questions for you. So hopefully you could teach us a few things here and there because I myself don't know much about estate planning because I myself don't even have a will. So like
Right.
after this we're gonna have to hook up. My
I
wife and I
know.
gotta come and meet with you, and we gotta have to sit down. Maybe Lisa could be in on it and we could talk more, about all of this.
For sure, man. You got a
Yeah,
house and three kids, man.
oh
You
yeah,
can't be.
three.
You got stuff.
Three, for real. The other day we were talking, right? Because I was telling my wife, oh, I'm gonna have an estate planner come on the live show this Friday. And my
Yeah.
kids was like, who the heck is an estate planner? And then
Right.
and then I was like, they are gonna be the one that's gonna help us set up a trust and a will so that when me and mommy's not here, you guys get this house and our assets, our businesses. And then my daughter goes, I don't think I want your businesses. You say that now,
Right, right. You
right?
can
You say
tell.
that
You can
now. Kids, they say the
Kids,
darndest
kids.
things.
I'm dreaming that one of my three kids wants to be a lawyer, but you can't, who knows? Who
That's
knows?
true.
I just need
That's
one of them
true.
to take over. I'll
Oh,
take any one of the three.
I know, I know. My son right now, he's doing live streams too.
Oh,
But
nice.
but then he
Nice.
plays games. He played Fortnite, right? And I had
Oh,
to manage his live chat and all that. So he's building an audience. He has over 600 subscribers now.
right, right, right. No, he's gonna overtake you.
Gaming for sure. I already told him that. So I already gave him the expectation that hey, when you start building a larger crowd, I can stop doing what I'm doing.
Right, right. Because you got all the equipment.
I
You're ready
do.
to roll.
Yeah, yeah. Like, and sometimes some of these people that come and watch his live stream, they're like commenting and hating on him. They're like, "How old are you? Why do you got all that equipment?" And then it's funny because some of the subscribers would comment and they would be like, "It's because his parents love him. That's why he has all equipment."
That's right. It's because he's using his parents' equipment.
Yeah. But anyways, Michael, I'm gonna start going down the list of the questions that we received. We got like four people that came on just now. So to all you four people that just joined, thank you guys so much for taking your time out on a Friday to join us. If you guys have any questions, make sure you guys jot them down in the comment section for the live chat so that me and Michael could answer them for you guys because we don't want to make you guys feel left out and it's gonna be a lot. estate planning is a lot. Like I said, I don't know much about it. That's why I have Michael here to share all of his knowledge with all of you guys. And hopefully at the end of this, me and him can set something up for me and my family. But if you guys are watching this for the replay, make sure you guys like, subscribe, be part of the Chi Chi fam if you guys haven't done that already. And we do this every Friday, 7 o'clock. So look forward to that. But without further ado, Michael, I'm going to give it to you, man. I'm just going to go over the questions one by one. You ready for me?
I'm ready. You give me the questions and I'll give you the answers.
Perfect. I love that. Okay, so the first question is from Big Hair Pear. She
Nice.
said, "Can I do this myself without legal representation?"
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, can you build a house?
Of course you can. It'll take
You
a long
can.
time.
It's just you might do it wrong. You know what I mean? And you might not know you did it wrong until your final inspection with the city, and they tell you, this house ain't gonna fly. And the problem with the estate plan is if you do it wrong, you don't know until you're dead, right?
Wait, so
Because it's not gonna come up.
what are some of the first things that could go wrong if it was done incorrectly?
Well, I can't even begin to address the many things that can go wrong. But I will tell you this: there are programs out there that people will try to use. You know what I mean? So that they can write their own will, and they pay to use these programs. It's not by any means free. And several times I've had clients who call me after attempting to use these programs. And they're like, "Hey, we used the program. Please don't be offended, but will you review it for us?" And one time, somebody did a very good job, and I was like, "You know what, man, you guys, And he was good with forms. He understood, but people do the craziest stuff. They have no idea. They are not realizing, and you would think it's pretty easy. I'm going to give stuff to my wife or to my kids or whoever. They will give stuff like to not their wife, to not their kids, to their unborn grandchildren, and they don't realize that's what they've done. You know what I mean? That would be one example of something that they do wrong. They will make a trust that splits into 4 different parts, each of which has to file an income tax return after they die, right? And they won't realize. And there's just, I mean, I can't even tell you. There's a lot of traps. There's a lot of ways. It should be simple for most middle-class families. It's a pretty simple operation. But you got to understand what parts of that document are simple and what parts are not simple, right? And that's just, if you've never done it before,
Why do you think?
it's very hard.
Why do you think some people would rather try to do it themselves or not do it at all versus hiring like an expert such as yourself?
Well, I think first off, it's probably hard to find a lawyer who you like, right? I mean, most of us don't like, I mean, I don't know. If I'm trying to think about like a mechanic, my car break, I got a regular guy I go to, but before, when I first moved here, you know what I mean?
He's watching his live stream, by the way.
I feel like any mechanic I go to is going to rip me off, right? Because I don't know. He can tell me anything he wants to about the car. And what can I do, right? All I can say is, okay, here's my credit card. And I mean, I can go to 2 or 3 more, but that takes time.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And if they all tell me something different, then I feel like I'm worse off than when I started, right? And I think people feel the same way about lawyers, probably even more so, because it's a bigger area that they don't know anything about. And it's just very hard to know if somebody you never met before tells you you need these documents you've never heard of. Are they just saying that? Are they upselling me?
That's true.
And so that's a big part of it. And so then, people look online and then, they're, I mean, ultimately, I suppose they're trying to save money and they're trying to avoid contact with a stranger who might try to cheat them in some way. So those are the 2 reasons, I would guess.
Oh, man. How much does let's say something simple like estate planning, how much does something normally run average?
Well, I don't know average. I can tell you, like, in the area of the industry that I try to inhabit, which is designed to serve middle-class people, for a married couple, it's about $1,200. For a single person, it's about $1,000.
Okay.
You will find lawyers who charge up to about $4,000. Now, I mean, of course, you could find lawyers who charge more, but I mean, if you're just a middle class family, you own one or two houses and no more stuff, somebody charging more would really be cheating you. But of course, if you're very wealthy and you have a lot of stuff, I mean, you might very well pay enormously more.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But even a middle class family, if you go to a larger law firm, and Sacramento doesn't really have like the big national law firms, they aren't represented here. But if you go to a big Sacramento law firm like Downey Brand or the like, then they'll charge you about $4,000 for estate planning, and that is a lot of money. And the thing is, although Downey Brand can probably serve a client with $50 million better, they don't do anything better for a typical middle class client. And so I don't think that money is well spent. So, I mean, that's the segment of the market that I'm reaching out to and that I'm interested in, right? I mean, I want to work with people like me. I don't have $50 million. I don't expect to have $50 million, next week either. And that's all good. You know what I mean? I'm happy where I'm at, and I want to help out people who are doing what I do. And there's other attorneys like me out there, but there's a lot that charge more.
I hear you. Okay, well, thanks for sharing that. Let's go on to the next question, okay? Thanks. That was really detailed. That was pretty awesome. So this next question is from Pig of the Universe. Why do I like your name, by the way? Why do we need one? Who needs one? When is the best time for one? What is the most cost-effective way to get a will? The difference between a will and a trust. It's a lot. Do you remember
That
it?
was like 5 questions. Okay, well, I mean, the first one, why do we need to get one? Well, you are going to die. I mean, we all are going to die, unfortunately. I mean, I hope I don't die ever. But I mean,
Me too. Me too.
but from what I can see, it keeps happening to people, not to me, but to people around me. So you're going to die, and when you die, it's not easy to get stuff from people who die to the people they wanted it to go to. It doesn't happen at all automatically. Sometimes people seem to have a view that it just happens as a matter of course. But you got to understand that throughout human history, people have been very inclined to steal from folks who just died. Because folks who just died aren't there to protect their stuff anymore, right? And so, our law for contracts and our law for, torts and things, it dates from English times, in Middle Ages and English. But our law for estate planning, for wills, dates from Roman times. It goes way back. It's one of the oldest parts of our legal system.
Really?
It's been a problem for a long time. People steal when you die, and so they said one of the first things people thought of having courts do is when someone dies, let's have somebody in there to say, hey, who gets the stuff? Let's make sure it's going to be fair, right? And, some people it's simple. They got one wife. They got one kid. Okay, great. But other people it's not simple. They got 2 kids here. They got 2 kids there. They got, you know what I mean? And then they have a new wife and then another wife after that. The wealthier you are, it seems the more complicated your life can be that way, right? I mean, think about famous people and how many kids they have and how many different ways, right? Prince. I mean, I loved Prince. He died about 9 years ago, something like that. Guy never got married. Guy had kids, but never talked about who his kids were. He died with no will, no trust, no nothing. And Prince, it's not like he just owned a pile of money. He owned a lot of very complicated assets, right? He didn't just have songs that were recorded and had licenses. He had songs that hadn't been recorded yet. He had songs he'd written for other people. He had thousands of contractual assets, basically, right?
Got it.
And all that stuff, nobody knows who it goes to. That's been in court in Minnesota since he died, and it still is.
Really?
Yes.
What?
Yeah,
because nobody's claiming it.
He's gonna. No, people are claiming it. There are a lot of people fighting over it.
What?
There are a lot of people fighting over it. Yeah, his case is gonna be. That's what law students are reading about now. That's what law students in 20 years would be one of the biggest estate planning cases.
Wow.
And that was one of the things that made the field interesting to me when I was in law school. You read cases. You read cases that have happened before. A lot of cases in a lot of areas of law are pretty boring, but estate planning has a lot of human interest to it. You know what I mean? Because it's like people and their loved ones and and their kids and the cool stuff they had and like everybody fighting over it. That's that's some
That's
soap
drama. That's
stuff.
like a that's
Drama.
like a drama show. Yeah.
So anyway, who needs it? I mean, unfortunately, we all kind of need estate planning. Now, how much estate planning you need depends on how much stuff you have. But the bottom line is, most people in this country these days have a lot of stuff. I know we talk all the time about how the middle class is getting shrunk and people are getting poor, but we're not. Compare it to what your grandfather had.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what grandpa's house looked like. Grandpa had a small house with small things. Okay? Grandpa did not own 3 other houses. Grandpa didn't have a timeshare. Grandpa had one beat up old truck, right? I mean, we look at how we live today, we just have a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And the number of people who've got enough stuff that they're going to have to go through probate is, probably 40%, 50% of the population. Okay? So probate can't handle that many people. So every state has gotten some way to get people out of court. They've given people options so they can get out of court. Different states handle it slightly different, although many states do kind of the same thing. And the main thing we use in California is a revocable trust. It's a contractual agreement that lets you privately handle your estate, so you don't have to go to this judge from Roman times and explain who gets your stuff. You can have allocated it beforehand. And in simple terms, that's what a revocable trust is. And if you've got a will and all you've got is a will, you're going to go to probate. You're going to go to the court. The judge is going to be involved, and it takes a long time. If you've got a trust, it could take a long time if you don't organize things properly, if your assets are complicated, if you leave it a mess. But if you keep things nice and tidy, you get it all done up right, it can be very easy. And it's the only way it can be very easy, unless you die broke. That's also a way to make it easy. But most of us aren't planning to do that.
Man, that was a lot.
So I don't know, did I get all of his questions?
I think you did. You got all of their questions, yes.
Pig of the universe.
Yeah, pig of the universe. Okay, next question is from Karen Hood Realtor.
Okay.
Pros and cons of both wills and trusts.
Well, I mean, a will, I mean, I guess if you don't have real estate, if you don't own any real estate, and you don't have like hundreds of thousands of dollars in a bank account, you might be able to get by without a trust. And I guess the pro of a will is it's a little bit simpler and it's a little bit cheaper to just set up a will than a will and a trust. But for the vast majority of people, the will's pros don't really add up to much. I mean, a will, you're going to have to go through probate. Now, I'll tell you, I'm going to give you an example that kind of flies in the face of that. I'm a football fan. The team I watch is the New Orleans Saints. And the owner of the New Orleans Saints was a man named Mickey Loomis. Okay? New Orleans Saints is a big organization worth hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. But it wasn't when he first started the team in the 60s. Okay? It was small. And he never took on partners or anything. It was privately held, as many sports franchises are. They're some of the largest privately held businesses out there. Now, here's the problem. He did not want to die and have his affairs handled privately. And the reason is he had thousands of employees who are all not sure, because he had a little bit of a complicated thing. He had a few kids who didn't get along. He had a new wife, you know what I mean? And he didn't want people to be in the dark about who was going to be in charge of his estate. He wanted it all out in the open in a public forum. So he made the very rare choice of a wealthy individual to not have a trust. He had a will. He had it witnessed by the Archbishop of New Orleans. He didn't want there to be any question that this was his legitimate will. And he wanted the process, which he knew was going to take a few years to settle out, to be something that everybody could see. So his employees wouldn't be worried about who was going to be maybe in charge or who was not, right? Everything was going to be transparent. Most of us, that is not what we're thinking about. Most of us don't want our life to be out there. We don't have the concerns that Mickey Loomis did. But that is an example of, for him, he saw an advantage in a will. He wanted his case to go to court, to be handled by very important people, for everybody to see, for everybody to know no one was cheating, no one was pulling a fast one. But most people want affairs to be handled more simply. There's not a lot of controversy. They got 3 kids. Each kid's getting a third. They just want it to be done easily and quickly and cheaply. And for them, anybody in that kind of situation, a trust is going to be the advantage. Now, the other thing a trust can do that a will cannot is some people don't want to just give stuff to people when they die. They want to have some
Yeah.
control of it after they die, right? They want to say, I'm giving you $100,000, but you get $5,000 a year until
Ah.
you quit drugs, or
Mm.
until you graduate from a 4-year university, or until you divorce that awful person. You know what I mean? Like, whatever it is. And I'm not telling you you should want to control the world that way, but some people do. And a trust gives you ability, almost a limitless ability to do that. I don't want to say limitless, but I mean, usually, like the extent of your imagination is pretty much the limit. Um, and I'll tell you, you can't do this anymore because the law has changed. But Benjamin Franklin, he set up a trust when he died. He left £100 sterling to the city of Boston, not Philadelphia, with which he's usually associated, but to Boston. And he said, for 100 years, this money's going to sit. And after 100 years of it being invested, you're going to take half of it and build a
Mm.
monument. And then that second half is going to sit for another 100 years. And
Oh.
that happened. Like they built those two monuments in Boston. You can go find them. And I mean, that's kind of a cool
Wow.
thing that he did with a trust. Now, these days, you can't leave a trust. I mean, maybe he pulled some trick. He knew fancy lawyers, right? But generally speaking, you can't make a trust just go on for 200 years.
Wow.
It's usually got to be more limited than that. We've passed some laws against that. But you know, hey, that was a cool thing he did, and it's part of American history.
Man, that is pretty cool. So he gave instructions even though he wasn't alive anymore.
That's right. That's right. You're gonna
Wow.
have this invested, and he had detailed instructions about how it would be invested too. So it was millions of dollars after 100 years, right? I mean, that's how it works with compounding interest. And it was like, like $100 million after 200 years,
Oh my
the second
god.
half of it. So they built big things. I mean, public works in the city of Boston with that money.
That's so good to know. Thank you for sharing that. That is pretty good to know. Okay, so we got a few more people that came on. There's a comment on the live chat, so I'm gonna address that comment first before we move forward to the next question. Okay, Michael?
Sure thing.
So this question is from DC. DC says, "Hello. I was in line for a new phase home. We've been waiting 7 months. Now builder wants to bid and they tell us a week before release. I only have an email saying we have first choice. My wife and I are disheartened. Any recommendations?" DC, that's what's going on right now. I mentioned in our last live show that new builds eventually is gonna get to that point to where there's so much demand that now they're gonna start doing bidding wars. And it's getting to that point. Like, I wouldn't even be surprised, Michael, if like new build starts doing lottery draws like they did in 08, 07.
Man.
It's so crazy right now. Yeah, I feel for you, DC. Like, waiting for 7 months. So if you were here last week, I recommended go and be on the waiting list of a new build. But don't stop looking. Keep still looking at homes, like resale homes with your agent. Because every month that you wait, prices are unfortunately going up. Every time a new phase comes on, the price increases with each new release. And they probably have hundreds of people on the waiting list that they're going in order. So like it's kind of hard because and the thing about new build too is they write their own contracts. So I can't even go in there and be like, hey, here's my contract. We're sealing the deal of this lot right now at this price. I can't even do that for you because new builds would just look at my card forms and be like, what is that? Get rid of it. We have our own contracts. And so that's tough, DC. Like my recommendation to you again, keep looking at homes with your agent for the time being. If that home is not for you at the new build, then go and put your name on another waiting list. But keep looking at homes because whichever one comes first should beat the objective. Because each time that you're waiting, if you're looking for a home and you need a home right now, each time you're waiting, each month you're waiting, prices are going up. Even for resale homes, all my buyers right now are getting outbidded. You know, that's just. I mean, we just went through the market update earlier in this live, and there's like 300 plus homes, but 300 plus homes also sold. So, you gotta look at the data because data don't lie. That's my recommendation to you, DC. Thanks for the question. And let's go on back to the questionnaires for Michael. All right, you ready for the next one, Michael?
I'm ready.
Okay. How long does it take to set up a trust? This is from Big Hair Peer.
Oh, it doesn't take that long. I have a client this week, and I won't tell you too much, but they've got a medical thing coming up, and they're really nervous. You know what I mean? And they called me. They didn't understand that the operation was going to be as soon as it was, so we ended up getting their trust done within a week. Now, usually, yeah, usually I'd say that if people want to move fast, 2 to 3 weeks is what I can do. As a practical matter, most people take much longer, just because I send them documents and then they sit on them for a month or whatever. And I'm busy, so I don't bother them. You know what I mean? I let people take their time. People sometimes need to process this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? I find a lot of people get nervous about estate planning. They know they have to do it, but they have some hangups about it. So I give people time, and many people take ultimately several months to go through the process. But there's no reason it needs to be that long. I'm happy to work faster if you want to work faster. And if you've got an emergency, as that client did this week, we can get it done pretty darn quick.
Okay.
Unless I'm in court. Luckily, I was not in court this week.
Okay, next one is from Pahua. They said, if we have a will, do we still need a trust? Vice versa.
Well, okay, so vice versa is easier. A trust should never exist without a will, and we're getting in the weeds a little bit here, okay? But when you have a trust, okay, because we haven't talked a whole lot about exactly how that trust works. When you have a trust, you're going to put stuff in the trust, but you don't put everything in the trust. You put your house in the trust. Okay, you probably should put a bank account in the trust. You're going to put your investment account in the trust. You might make the trust the contingent beneficiary of your retirement accounts, your life insurance after your spouse. But you're not going to put your teacups in the trust. You're not going to put your car in the trust. You don't even need to put all your bank accounts in the trust. You might not put your timeshare in the trust. There's a variety of, smaller assets, little things you have. We all got I like to think of it like a big circle, right? Your estate's kind of a messy circle. That's all the things you own. But the trust estate, what we put in the trust, that's a nice, perfectly circumcised, circle right in the middle, right? Like with a compass, drawn with a compass. So circumscribed, circumcised.
I know.
Circumscribed is the word I was looking for. So what we need a will to say where everything goes afterwards. And what the will that goes with the trust does is it says everything goes to the trust at my death. But the result is that you don't have to manufacture documents for all your personal property and for everything else you may get. You put specific things in the trust, everything else gets handled by the action of the will. So you're always going to have a will with your trust. You always should have a will with your trust. If you have just a will, it's going to work. It's going to get things to go to who you want it to, okay? It doesn't usually have the ability to exert any control after you die. So if you're like you or me and you have young children and you die earlier than expected, you and your spouse, which luckily that doesn't happen much, but if that were to happen, all that money is going to go to your kid when they're children. Well, that you may not know that does not work, okay? So that's going to be, not only is probate going to happen in court for the year long, but the court is going to appoint somebody called a guardian ad litem to watch that money for your child and dole it out as they see fit until the child turns 18, at which point the child gets the entire block of money. Now, some kids are probably good to have money at 18, but it seems to me that many are not, right? At least many people seem to think their kids are not ready for money at 18. So none of that can be handled, right? And that's kind of, I was talking about you can control assets after death, and I gave you some more frivolous examples. But the most common example we use of how to control assets after death is making it so that money does not go to children until they reach a certain age, 21, 25. There's nothing wrong with 18, right? Some people are perfectly happy with the children getting money at 18, but not every child is ready, right? And a child who's lost their parents is probably more likely to not be ready, right? You got to think about it that way.
Can a parent still assign instructions or funeral arrangements um, in a trust or will?
Yes, I mean, typically we do funeral arrangements insofar as we issue those instructions in a legal document. We usually use the power of attorney for healthcare in California. You could do that in a will or a trust as well. Um, and certainly insofar as you set up like a sub trust for your children that's going to hold that money until 25, you can absolutely give instructions. Although I would generally recommend that you keep the instructions very uh, brief and give the trustee a lot of discretion in the actual legal document, because, because otherwise you are going to give a lot of handholds for people who want to contest a will or a trust. And it's better to make those instructions in an extra legal document, like a letter that you write alongside it, that you know is going to have power over the trustee you picked, because you know that person cares about you and remembers you and is doing this for you. But you don't actually want it to be in the trust, where it can sometimes cause trouble. Um,
That's
that's getting into the details of it right there. So I don't necessarily
yeah.
want.
The only reason why I would ask is because my nationality, we I believe we feel that whenever elder passes away, it gets handled by kind of like the clan, right? Or what I've seen sometimes too is they will kind of have like a table talk about the whole funeral arrangements, and the wife or the surviving partner would say, "I know that if my spouse was here, they would want me to do the funeral like this." And then
Okay.
of course the rest of the family will come and be like, "No, we have a say in this, and we prefer it to be like that."
Oh, I
You,
see.
you see what
So
I
this is
mean?
something you guys fight about this a lot.
Oh my goodness, you have no idea
Well, you might
now.
have more of an incentive to write down more detailed instructions in that. Once again, power of attorney for healthcare is actually the most appropriate place for that. But sometimes people put it in a will, and that's okay too. Um, but again, if you left it just in any document, you know what I mean? If you said, please, in your power of attorney for healthcare, please follow the instructions I've left behind, and then you just had a letter that you kind of maintained on your, because you might change your mind, and you don't want to have to go back to a lawyer every time you change your mind.
Ah,
So when we're talking about things that might change, I generally try to get people to do that a little bit on the side, so that they come to me once, maybe twice, right? If you're like your age, you might come to me twice, right? Because you're going to come to me now, and you're going to come to me when your kids are like 30, and you want them to be in charge of everything, right? Because right now, you wouldn't pick your kids to be in charge. You'd pick your brother, your sister,
exactly.
something like that. But when you're older, you'll want your kids. So you're going to have to make one amendment if you're going to do it that way. But I don't want you to have to come back every time somebody moves. I don't want you to have to come back every time somebody, you get a new guitar and you want to give it to a different nephew. You know what I mean? Like, so to an extent, we try to get some of those details out of the notarized document and into some supplemental documents, right? And that's the thing. So that's why sometimes people think, man, there's so much to think about. I got to think about all my stuff when I make a trust,
Mm,
but you don't. We're going to handle the big stuff, the stuff you know about, and we're going to do that easy. The details, you can think about them, or you can let the next generation think about them. Those aren't going to court. That's up to you to think about. If you want to put a sticky note on property you got around your house, you can do that. You can do that, but you don't need that to be in your will.
so if I got this straight from what you just mentioned,
Yeah.
basically find an attorney to guide you and advise you on what you should and should not do.
I mean, that's the bottom line. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. And that's another reason
Okay.
why people can't do this on their own.
It's
Because they start
overwhelming.
worrying, I kid you not, they start worrying about the teacups. They
Oh my.
start worrying about the teacups. They're going through the cabinet. Okay. And I mean,
I
people
got a
are
collection.
crazy.
Oh man, okay, I can already see that. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now
Right.
let's go on to the next question. But let's address the people that just showed up. We got 8 people now. Welcome to the live show. We got Michael Holy here. He is an estate planner, attorney at law, and yeah, if you guys have questions, make sure you guys put them down in the live chat so that we could answer them, because we want to make sure that we go over all your concerns. I almost feel like we might have to go a little bit over 8, man. You down for that or no?
Oh, I'm out hanging out. If we're having
Okay.
fun, we're having
I'm
fun.
having fun, man. It's already like 7:40, and then we still haven't went through half the questions yet. So, but yeah, so just if you guys are just watching it for right now, make sure you guys put your questions in the live chat. If you guys are watching it for the replay, like and subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't been part of the Chi fams. But let's go on to the next question. Okay, next question is from Mong Vang Tao. Explain in detail what death taxes are and how to limit an individual's estate taxes after they pass.
It's the easiest question of the night.
Oh,
There
okay.
are no death taxes in California, really. There are none. You're not going to pay nothing. Look, California does not have an estate tax, does not have an inheritance tax. Some states do.
Oh.
When you're moving out of California because you're going to save all this money on taxes, you watch out. You might not be paying sales tax, but they're going to get you when you die. California, no estate tax, no inheritance tax. So that means the estate is not taxed when you die, and the people who receive inheritances, there's no taxes on that, okay? So no tax at all there. Federally, there is a federal estate tax. It kicks in if you're married at approximately $24 million. So you got more than $24 million and you're married, you're going to have to start planning for that estate tax. If you're single, it's about half that. It's a little bit less than $12 million. Now that number has gone up and down over history, right? In the 90s, it was like 300,000. It was an issue. Everybody had to worry about estate taxes in the 90s. But that's a long time ago. George W. Bush, he largely eradicated the estate tax, bumped it up to $1 million, and then it kept growing after that for like a 7-year period. It got to the point that it was $5 million for a single person, $10 million for a married couple, and that already took it out for most people. Like at that point, we weren't talking about it much. Well, Donald J. Trump, he bumped it up again. Why? Because he's got a lot of money. He doesn't want to pay estate taxes.
Of course, makes sense.
And there's one thing that man knows how to take care of. It's himself. So
Yep.
now we got what we got. $12 million, $24 million. Now, people might say, well, that could change. But have you heard anybody talking about that? I mean, they're talking about a lot of stuff right now, right? I mean, we had a different
talking about stimulus checks.
Talking about a lot of stuff, but nobody's talking about estate taxes. So it doesn't seem to me very likely that that's going to change a lot. And even if it does, it's incredibly unlikely it's going to change enough that middle-class people have to be worried about it. Now, if you got over, if you got over $12 million worth of stuff, because you might be married now, but you might not always be married. If you got more than $12 million worth of stuff, you do need to think about that. And there are, I mean, that's a complicated world out there, right? I mean, law for rich people, rich people lawyers, they make a lot of money. There's a lot of work those rich people need, okay? And I can tell you a little bit about it if you've got specific questions, but I'm hoping most of you, well, I mean, hey, good for you. If you got $12 million, that's outstanding. But most people probably don't have to worry about that.
Good to know. Somebody mentioned, finally, something great about California.
There you go. You know what? I gotta address that. I lived in California my whole life, and my whole life people have been telling me people are moving out of California. California's going down the tubes. When I was born, when I was a kid, California was the 7th largest economy in the world. Today we're the 5th largest. And yet people have been leaving and we've been going down the tubes for the whole 46 years I've been alive. So I don't know, man. I think you got to watch out for that hype. You got to watch out for that hype. I'm not sure it's telling the truth.
Yeah, I know. That's so true. Okay, let's go on to the next question. This one's from Mai Li Yang.
Oh.
Do you still need to go through probate even with you still need to go through probate even with a will? That's why you should put it in the living trust.
Yeah, that's correct. That is correct.
Talk about that.
Well, I mean, a will is, like I said, it's an old kind of law, and we got a special court, processing court called probate that's just for looking at wills. That's all that probate does. Okay, prove wills. That's what it means. And probate, it's like I said. I mean, in Sacramento, it's about a year-long process, approximately. A little bit slower, quicker in other counties. But if you've just got a will, and you have a lot of stuff, and by a lot I mean 200,000 or so of personal property, or any amount just about of real property. I mean, technically it's only 150,000 of real property, but it's hard to find real property worth less than 150,000 in the state. Then you're gonna have to go through probate. Now, if you don't have that much, let's say you don't have, I wrote 2 wills today. Now that's unusual. I don't write that many wills, but I happen to have 2 clients, and I wrote them both in the same day because kind of similar situations. And they don't have a house, okay? And they've got some assets. They've got life insurance. They've got retirement accounts, but they don't have anything that's adding up to $200,000. Life insurance and retirement accounts actually don't count for that calculus. So if you're in that boat, if you don't have a house and you don't have like a big investment account, then you might not need a trust. But if you have a house, you're sunk, man. You need a trust. That's all there is to it.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you're going through probate.
Got it. That's good to know.
If you got a house or you got kids, generally speaking, that's what I would say. If you got a house or kids, you have both, you really need a revocable trust.
Good to know.
Now, another thing I should throw out there is you don't need a will, right? If you don't have that much stuff, your stuff's not going to go like be seized by the police. I mean, it's going to go to your relatives, right? It's going to go to your nearest relatives. If you're a single person, you know what I mean? You don't have any kids, it's going to go to your parents. Your parents are already dead. It's going to go to your brothers and sisters equally. If you're happy with that and you don't have that much stuff, you don't have to worry about it. But,
Hmm.
still, you might be worried about what your funeral is going to look like, right? You might want to write some documents down to get that done. You might, if you don't have that much stuff, you might care more about the things you do have, and you might care about the teacups, and you might want these teacups to go to that niece and these teacups to go to the other one. You know what I mean? Um, and in fact, I would say that in my experience, that's often true. I mean, that people who have less stuff do tend to care more about the personal property that they have. Um, People who have a lot of stuff don't think as much sometimes about the personal property.
Got
Uh,
it.
it just depends what kind of stuff you have too.
Okay.
But yeah, when I have clients from out in the country, they have firearms, they have vehicles that are associated with other people in their life, and they want those going to those people.
Hmm. Okay. Makes a lot of sense. Good to know.
There you go.
All right.
We go.
Next
What else we got?
question
Okay, I'm ready.
from Zong Matthew Lee. If there's a will, there's a how, just a quote. Oh my gosh. It's
If there's a
perfect.
will, there's a how. I have not heard that before, but I
Okay, this
will.
one's from this one's from Chai. Show us how to structure our real estate for easy transition after we pass away.
Okay, that's a complicated question. There's a lot of ways to structure real estate. Depends what kind of real estate you have and how much you have. But if you got a situation that's like kind of like mine. Maybe you own a house you live in. Maybe you got another rental property. There's a lot of advantages to holding those in your own name, not using an LLC or a corporation or anything like that, and then using a revocable trust to pass those all on to the next generation. And the principal advantage of doing it that way is capital gains.
Hmm.
You buy a house for $100,000, you sell it for $600,000, you got to pay taxes on the $500,000 gain, right? There's one big exemption that most people can qualify for. That's the homeowner's exemption. If you're selling the house you live in, you get an exemption. If you're single, it's $250,000. If you're married, it's $500,000. So for a lot of people in Sacramento, when they sell the house they live in, that homeowner's exemption is big enough, right? Takes care of them. Not so in the Bay Area, right? You're in the San Francisco Bay
Mm.
Area. That 250, 500,000, that is not enough to cover the gain you've
Yep.
made. Okay? So capital gain is a big deal. Your second home, however, the one you're using as a rental property, you have no exemption, right? The only way you're going to avoid paying taxes is if you do a rollover, right? And it's not a simple matter. You have to hire an escrow company to set that up, right? And then you can roll that over investment property. But if you actually just want to sell the property and get the money, you're going to be paying capital gains taxes.
Right.
But here's the thing. The number one way that we get rid of capital gains taxes is we pass things on by inheritance. Because if you pass that on to your spouse when you die, and it was community property, that's the first step. When you die, it's like she bought it or he bought it at that price on your date of death.
Mm.
So you had a $600,000 gain because you've had that house for 3 years.
Oh.
It just goes away. And if she or he wants to sell that house the next day, no taxes. That's
Wow.
hundreds of thousands of savings, potentially. It just depends on what kind of house we're talking about. But, I've got a rental property, and I've always told my wife, if I die, you sell that the next day because you're probably going to need the money, right? I mean,
Wow.
especially if I die when I'm younger. It's a partial life insurance situation in my case because right now, if we sell it, we're going to pay taxes. But if I die, she can sell it tax
Mm.
free, and you got to take advantage of that opportunity. So that's a
Wow.
big, and that doesn't work if you put things in LLCs and corporations. You lose that. You lose that.
Mm.
It's the biggest disadvantage to the LLC, the corporation. Um, and the same thing, in addition to that happening to your spouse when it's community property, if you leave it to your children or other relatives, there are some limitations on who you can leave it to, but basically you leave it to your relatives, the same thing happens. When you die,
Mm.
it goes to those relatives, and that capital gain will be reset. Now, keep this in mind with a second thing that's very important and which is new. Prop 19. We all voted on it this year. We all
Did
passed
we?
it. Most of you had no idea what it was. Most of you thought you were helping wildland firefighter victims, but you were not. You were increasing property taxes on real estate you inherit. That's what you were doing. And it was the real estate guys liked it. You know why? Because they're going to sell more houses. And here's why. It used to be if you inherited a rental property, okay, if you inherited a rental property, you got to take it at your parents' low property tax basis. So they were paying $1,000 a year on property taxes. You got to pay $1,000 a year on property tax, okay? And so it was attractive to keep that property maybe as a rental property. Well, that's gone now. You inherit that property now. You're going to get reassessed. It's going to be paying property tax at full value. So if it's a nice, big, fancy place in Granite Bay, you're going to be paying $10,000 a year in property tax, okay? And now you may not want to keep it as much anymore, especially because if you sell it, you pay no capital gains tax. And of course, if you keep it, you will gradually, it will increase in value and you would eventually have to pay capital gains tax. So there's kind of a big incentive to sell those properties right after you inherit them, that more so than there was before. Is why.
Do they need to be part of the deed as well?
No, absolutely not. No, that would ruin it. See, you put them on the deed, you ruin all this. You lose that capital gains reset.
Oh.
That's what we were talking about. You were saying, a lot of people like to just put their kids on the deed.
Yeah.
It can work. I don't want to tell you it never works, but it is terrible if there's a lot of capital gains to be paid because you will not reset the capital gains because that was a gift. When you get a gift, you inherit the same basis. So you bought that house for $100,000. You sit in it for 40 years. Day before you die, you give it to your son. Now he's going to pay that $500,000 in capital gains. And if you just waited one more day and died, he would have got it with no tax at all. So that can
Wow.
be a huge hundreds of thousands of dollar mistake. It's not always. Sometimes mom lives in a house and her daughter lives with her. And she wants her daughter to get the house. And then, they both live in the house together. That changes the rules a little bit about how it all works, okay? And the homeowner's exemption is still going to apply. So in that case, maybe that would be a reasonable situation, right? And maybe the gain's not $500,000. Maybe the gain's only $200,000, right? So daughter inherits mom's house. There's only $200,000 gain. Well, daughter has been living in the house. If she wanted to sell it, she's going to have a $250,000 exemption to cover that $200,000 gain. No problem. But those situations are a little bit rare. Most people are going to pay capital gains tax as a result of doing that thing. Now, the other reason where it wouldn't matter is if you're 100% sure there is no way you're going to sell that house, okay? You're 100% sure you're going to keep that house because you don't care about capital gains if you don't sell the house, right? But most people at least want to have the option, right? And it's tough if you own a house and you can't sell it without paying a huge amount of tax. Like that may have sounded good year 1, but year 5, you got other things going on. You've had some kids. Kind of stuck with that house. Would have been nice if you just inherited it. You know what I mean? And even if you decide to sell later, at least you were starting from a higher point, right?
Yeah.
Your basis was elevated at that date of death. You don't want to be starting with that 1965 basis. I mean, that's going to hurt.
Wow, that's such a clever strategy.
Yeah.
That's my first time hearing that.
Yeah. That's the biggest reason that you want to keep stuff in your personal name. Now, I mean, I don't want to go totally in the weeds on this, but if you are an investor and you have got other people coming in with you and you're buying houses and flipping them, then there's some other considerations, right? And that house is not going to be inherited. So, in that circumstance, you want to think about maybe an S corporation, maybe an LLC, maybe a partnership. It depends on your situation and your aversion to risk. But if you're a normal person, I mean, normal, right? We're all normal people. But if you're somebody who's holding property for the long term, you want to pass it on to your kids, it's generally much more advantageous to keep it in your own name. Sometimes people will tell me they're worried about liability, but I will tell you the liability that arises from owning a house in the regular course is very easy to insure against. You got to have the right kind of insurance, of course. You got to have homeowners insurance for the house you live in. You got to have rental property insurance if you're going to rent it out. If you're leaving a house vacant, You need to get a special kind of vacant house insurance. They're all different. But if you have that right kind of insurance, you really don't have any liability exposure. Okay. There's not like random things that happen with houses that like people are going to sue you for that aren't going to be covered if you've got the right insurance. So you don't need to worry about like my house is accidentally going to kill somebody, I'm going to get sued, and the insurance company is going to flake out on me. Well, it's much better to spend a little bit more money to get an insurance company you have faith in than it is to try to spend money on S corporations or whatnot and all the hassle that goes into that just to protect yourself from liability. But anyway, that's a whole nother ball of wax, right? We go a
I
long
got
way
it.
down
So so
that
you
road.
so question then, because you mentioned the normal people, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
normal, what if a normal average person don't have no assets? Do you still recommend them to get a will or a trust?
No, if you don't have any assets, you don't necessarily need a will or a trust unless you care about your personal property and who specifically gets it, and
Those
you want to
teacups.
say that about something, you know. But yeah, I mean, there are people who just get by with wills. It's not unheard of. But if you have a house or if you have small kids,
Hmm.
you know, because the small kids, even if you don't have that much, you might think you don't have that much. But if you have small kids, you don't have a house, you might still have life insurance. You might still have a
Oh
retirement.
yeah.
If you die, you suddenly have a lot of money, and you don't want that going to your small kid because they're not, you know, minors aren't allowed to hold property, right? They're just not allowed to hold very much at all. So if you've left a $500,000 life insurance policy and it's going to your 9-year-old daughter, that's going to be court supervised until she's 18. And that's going to be a lot of expense, a lot of
Got it.
hassle, a lot of extra court visits for her. She doesn't need that after she lost her parents, right? So
Right.
that's why I say small kids, there's a consideration for a trust. A house, there's a consideration for a trust. Small kids in a house, yeah, definitely.
Got it. Okay. Well, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. We got some new people online right now, so if you guys are new for the live stream, we are almost done. We answered majority of the questions, Michael. But then I wanted to at least answer a question from the live chat. This is from Juan Hernandez. What's your opinion on Bank of America 17,500 down payment or closing cost assistance?
That happens.
One, I would say that if you're going to utilize the down payment assistance for BOA, make sure you read the fine print. A lot of buyers just see the assistance amount and they get excited because for them they're thinking free money. Nothing is free. There's always the fine prints that tells you when you pay that money back or how you pay that money back. If it's a grant, it's free. You might just need to live in it for a couple months and then you don't need to pay it back, maybe a couple years. But make sure you go over those fine prints about that program with someone you trust, like another agent or another lender, because a lot of times those down payment assistance, if I remember correctly, the fine print on those would say something along the lines of if you utilize this down payment assistance to buy your home and when you refi or you sell it in the future, you have to pay all that back with interest. And sometimes people don't understand that, and then by the time they sell it, they're like, "Yay, I got all this equity for all these years I've been paying this home." No, you have three liens on the house. You have the down payment assistance one, you have the down payment assistance two, and you have your regular mortgage. You got to pay all of those back first before you can reap the benefits of the equity that you've gained from living there and paying it off. So make sure you read the fine prints. If it's a grant, I say go for it. That is free money. Just see how long you got to live there before you could actually rent it out, if that's your plan, or if you're planning on refinancing it. How long do you have to stay in it before it gets considered a grant to where you don't have to pay back? That's my recommendation to you. And thanks for the question, Juan. Hopefully, I answered it. If I didn't, I apologize. But yeah, get another eye on that fine print for that down payment assistance program. All right, Michael. Man, I think we answered majority of the question. Um, well, there's one right here from Niam Vane. She says, "What are some laws or legislations that are valid in California versus other states, since laws will vary state to state?"
Well, that's a big laws or legislation that vary state to state. I mean, there's a million laws that vary state to state. I mean, generally
Maybe
speaking,
regarding estate planning.
most of what we're talking about today is across states. So in other words, we're talking about capital gains. That's federal. That's going to happen in every state. We're talking about revocable trusts. Revocable trusts are accepted in all 50 states. There are some states where you don't necessarily need a revocable trust, or it is not as beneficial. I know in Texas, I have been told by attorneys who work in Texas, not that common there. They have a kind of a different system. Their probate is a little bit simpler. Now, I'll tell you, I went through a Texas probate last year. I didn't think it was all that simple. It was simpler than our probate, but it was still a pain in the butt. It was not as good as a trust, but whatever. That's the advice attorneys give in Texas, and that's fine. So that can change a little bit side to side. Wills are the same in all 50 countries, in all 50 states, more or less. I mean, there's going to be slight variations. And of course, you got to keep in mind, I'm only licensed to practice in one state, right? I know the laws of this state. I can't tell you as much about the laws of any of the other 49 states. And some of them are very different. Louisiana, very different. Indiana, very different. They have a civil law system instead of a common law system. But that was my attempt on that question.
Thank you
got to
so
be more
much.
specific about laws that are
Got
different.
it.
I mean, and the other thing
Well,
that's different, other states have estate taxes.
no, that makes sense. I figured it'll probably be like that because it's state to state. It's different. Unless you have different like firms in different states, you probably wouldn't know. But we do have a question from the live chat. Maybe this will be our last question, and then we could close it off. It's from Allie Cakes. She
Alley Cat.
says,
Okay.
Allie Cakes, yeah, or
Not Alley
Ally.
Cat, Alley Kate. That's cool.
She says, I don't have a property or asset. I have one child, life insurance, and a 401k. Should that be best under a trust?
I mean, yeah, and it's because if well, luckily I've had a lot of clients who were younger who've passed away, right? When you're an estate planning attorney, you just see a lot of people, right? And you hear about it when they die. So luckily, I've never had a situation where two young people both died and left a child behind. But I know it can happen. And especially if you're a single parent and you know that other parent's not there, it's just you. I mean, I think a trust is worth thinking about. And, a lot of times a client like that, you might not worry as much about the power attorney. You might not maybe even use the supporting will, 'cause if finances are tight, you don't have a house, you don't have a lot of assets. What you got is that life insurance, but you want to make sure if something happens to you, it's going to go to the kid, right? A trust is going to do that. And I do think that's an important thing to think about. You might find an attorney who's willing to work with you and get a little bit more of a stripped down trust that just does that one thing you need. But yeah, it does have a benefit.
Got it. All right. Well, hey, Michael, thank you so much for
Thank
the
you.
information, man. It was fun. I told you an hour was going to go by fast.
Hour went by fast.
Yeah, man, we gotta do this again because I know there's so much more we probably missed that is probably something important that you might want to share. But we're gonna have you back, okay?
That
I don't
sounds
know
good. Hey,
when.
let me know. Let me know the time. I'd be delighted. It was a good time. And
Yeah,
it was great to sit down with you and hang out and see your setup, learn about your family. So I
yeah,
appreciate it. So
yeah.
thank
We
you for
need to do
having.
this. We need to get together so that way I can set up my own trust, my own will.
That's right. And then you can tell everybody about the experience.
Yes,
Tell how
that is
great
exactly what it is. I
it
need to do that. I need to do that. So we're gonna close it off here, Cheat Sheet fams. Thanks you guys for watching. If you guys haven't liked this video, make sure you guys click that like button, share it with all your friends and family that needs to hear about this because this is important stuff. People think about life of it being more important when you're alive, but it's just as important when you're gone and you're leaving behind so many things for your friend, your family. So I think that's important too. So we're gonna end it here. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you guys, Gigi fams. Have a good night.